it is Nikki. Welcome back to the channel where I just recently finished writing what may be the worst chapter I've ever written in my life. And of course I don't mean that like totally objectively, like I'm sure when I first started I wrote something super awful, but relatively speaking, relative to the skill level that I'm currently at, I think this might actually be the worst thing that I've ever written. It has taken me weeks, I want to say close to a month, to finish this chapter, which is in part due to my own procrastinating, and that is a whole other issue that I really need to work on and could make a series of other videos on. But the other issue was just I really had a hard time figuring out where the chapter was going. It was just a toil from beginning to end. There are just so many issues with it that I don't even know how to begin sifting through all the issues with it, but here are the big ones. Number one is just way too long, and I think that has something to do with the amount of time it took me to write it. I feel like when you drag the process out that long, sometimes you can sort of like lose your temporal frame of reference and lose track of how much the chapter is stretching. I also had a really hard time figuring out where to end it. I knew that it was going on too long, I could feel it, but I just couldn't find a good place to cut it off, and so you're just kind of going and waiting for an opportunity to present itself. Like if you're on a road trip and you're exhausted and you know that you have to stop, but you kind of have to just keep driving and waiting until you see a hotel road sign. So that's all problem number one. The chapter itself was just way too long. Problem number two is a quality issue. The quality just wasn't there for a few reasons. One, I never really hit flow while writing this chapter, so I never really got into that zone where the words are coming easily. It was just effortful the entire time. Every time I sat down, I maybe got like 100, 200 words before I like had to stop, because it's just like I don't know what to do from here, and because of that, the writing doesn't have that smooth quality of when you really get in the zone and you're really feeling the flow of the words. It was just like a fight for every word. Also, somewhere in there, I lost hold of my deep POV, and so there are parts that are really not deep POV, so it's kind of out of place because the rest of it is, and so it just, what a mess. Problem number three, I didn't really know where the chapter was going, and so lots of things changed mid-chapter. I was like pivoting multiple times or like coming up with main plot things to do with this chapter while I was writing it, and then having to like hinge to sort of change the trajectory towards those new ideas. And so the end result is like not even consistent with itself. And number four, I still don't really know where the chapter is going. At the end of it all, I never hit a groove. I never had the aha moment where I figured out where this character was going, and so I'm left with this chapter that really isn't of much use to me because I think it will just be irrelevant depending on where I decide to go. I think I used all the wrong flashbacks in this chapter to set up what's to come, so I'll have to figure out which ones of those I want to move forward with and which ones I want to repeat later on, or rather replace and put later on instead. It's just yikes. So I could be panicking. I could be, you know, spiraling into imposter syndrome and the feeling that I should just give up, and the temptation is there, let me tell you. But I'm thankful to say, praise the Lord, overall I'm actually more satisfied with myself about this chapter. Not because it's a good chapter, because it's obviously not, but I'm happy that I finished it. I'm happy that I started and finished, made it all the way to the end, and that I have something to show for all that effort. Right now I'm reading Anne Lamott's Bird by Bird. If you haven't heard of it, is a really engaging read by a writer about writing. Just like her imparting her wisdom about writing, but in a very quirky and fun to read way. Great book, and one of the things she really emphasizes in it is the importance of doing short assignments and finishing them at all costs. Obviously, my giant prequel project, that's not a short assignment, but this chapter is a short assignment, and I made it to the end. The ending is terrible. It doesn't make sense with the beginning of the chapter because I changed directions partway through, but I'm happy with myself that I didn't just quit, because I could have just pulled the plug and said, you know what, I won't even finish this chapter, I'll just move on to what's next. Or more likely, this is more in line with the Nikki I've come to know, I could have started over because I can't have a chapter this bad in my draft. It has to be perfect. I need to get it right. And I'm really glad that I didn't do that this time. I didn't really feel the need to do that this time, and I threw together an ending, and I brought the chapter to a conclusion and completed a short assignment. Also, this is the closest thing to discovery writing that I've done in a while, and so I'm trying to just enjoy that process in all of its messiness. And on top of that process of elimination, I now have a complete chapter that shows me exactly what I don't want this chapter to be when all is said and done, and I'm that much closer to figuring out what I do want. I feel like Thomas Edison would agree with me on this one. Good thing is that there is absolutely no rush on this project. This is just for fun. It's just for me. So I can take as much time as I want. I can enjoy the ride and just have fun with this sort of crappy first draft, as it were. And Lamont uses different terminology, but I'm not going to. I do understand the importance of having that really rough first draft and being okay with that. Perfectionism is like so paralyzing. I'm realizing that more and more. And so I'm just thankful that I've come far enough in shedding perfectionism that I'm actually able to have this really awful chapter and not lose sleep over this piece of rubbish that is chapter 27. So I hope that this can be of some anecdotal encouragement to someone out there who may need reminding that there is beauty in the rough draft and that rough drafts are supposed to be rough and that that's not just like okay or inevitable or something we all have to deal with. It's actually also constructive and I think healthy and good for us mentally. It pushes us. It pushes us to put aside perfectionism and that is only a good thing. So thank God for messy first drafts. Thank you so much for watching this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it and as always, do not forget to spend some time in the clouds today.